BYU Sports Nation, presented by the BYU Store. Simulcast on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Now from Studio B, your hosts, Jason Shepard and Dave McCann.
What's up, everybody? BYU Sports Nation is live. We are your day-to-day play-by-play right here in Studio B. We are presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere. Today is Thursday, June 16th, 2022. Thank you so much for joining us on the program today. My name is Jason Shepard, teamed up with the assistant to Russell Wilson's personal quarterback coach. He is Dave McCann.
Isn't that a dream job? And hey, everybody, welcome to our Friday pregame show. That's what makes Thursday so good. So Jake Heaps, who played here, came as the #1 recruit in the country, is going from his job in Seattle as a radio host to be the personal quarterback coach to the Denver Broncos for Russell Wilson.
Not bad. Like, it's my understanding that because obviously he's from Seattle and obviously Russell was there for so long, that they had formed a relationship, and Jake was actually like the lead quarterback coach at Russell Wilson's academy. So they had this long-standing relationship, and now going to Denver with him.
He made the announcement on his radio show, Seattle Sports ESPN 710, yesterday. Here's a little clip.
I have resigned to pursue a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to coach Russell Wilson full-time and develop the next generation of quarterbacks. I am honestly thrilled to get the chance to focus full-time on coaching the game that I love at the highest possible level.
So unlike George Costanza, who was the assistant to the traveling secretary, this is real stuff.
This is happening.
And there's great expectation in Denver. That might be to the demise of your Chiefs. We'll see. But there's great expectation in Denver because they got Russell Wilson, and now Russell Wilson's bringing his guns with him. Jake Heaps is one of them, so we wish him the best. That would be the equivalent, I think, of one of us leaving these jobs to go be Charles Barkley's broadcast coach. For the
imagine
NBA.
the fun we would have if that were actually
I think it'd be awesome. I think Jake, who I think kind of got a raw deal, he came in with expectation as a young kid, more than anyone has ever come into the BYU program with. It didn't work out. And he got over it faster than a lot of the fans, especially the fans on the fringe that like to cause a lot of trouble dogging guys for their lack of success on the field. And he took the brunt of that. And he's a bigger guy, and he's turned it around, and he's got a life in football. He came to school to get a job in football. You know what he's got? He's got a job with the Denver Broncos and Russell Wilson in football. Nice job.
Well, and we were having this conversation before we went on the air today. I have always been a fan of Jake Heaps. I liked my interactions with him, and I think one of the things that has really stood out to me after, and it goes along with what you were talking about, was just how quickly he was able to pivot when things didn't turn out the way he had wanted. And he's made a name for himself as a quarterback coach, obviously, but he's also one of those guys that, you know, he's been at ESPN up in Seattle for a couple of seasons and has really made a name for himself in the media industry. Yeah. So it's really cool to see him be able to pivot from one situation to the next and be successful each and every time.
It's tough, and when guys come in with all those accolades, Ben Olsen, another one, you almost feel like you want to apologize before they start.
Yeah.
Because it's really got to work out stupendously, or there's going to be disappointment unfairly, but that's what you get when you come in #1.
All right, let's get to today's show lineup. Now, depending on what happens this season with BYU football, the Cougars could be putting together a 3-year stretch for the ages. We'll discuss how it could compare to other stretches in BYU football history coming up in What's Trending. Tori McElhaney will join us to talk about Tyler Allgeier and his opportunity with the Atlanta Falcons. Tori covers the Falcons for AtlantaFalcons.com. Plus, new BYU Assistant Athletic Director for Football Academics, Jasen stops by to talk about his new role and expectations for the upcoming football season. Bring on today's BYU Sports Nation headlines.
I just said stupendously. Is that even a word?
Sure.
Does it even apply to the usage that I put it in?
Look, it worked for me. Whether that means anything, I don't know.
My mom's shaking her head somewhere. Clark Barrington was named a preseason first-team All-American by Phil Steele. Barrington was the only Cougar listed in Steele's group. The junior played in 33 games in his last 3 seasons for BYU. He's part of what could be the best offensive line in school history. We will see, but that is a stacked bunch, and they are stacked deep.
Michaela Clough, former BYU women's soccer superstar, received a call-up for the U23 U.S. national team. The United States will play friendlies against India and Sweden later in June. Congrats to Michaela.
It's awesome. Former BYU soccer standout Elizabeth Busy Bowen joins the women's soccer staff as a volunteer assistant coach. She played for Coach Jen Rockwood from 2014 to 2017, worked as a volunteer assistant at the U this past spring. Cougars open the season August 13th at North Carolina.
Former BYU women's basketball player Maria Albiero was selected to play in Brazil's LBF All-Star basketball game coming up on Sunday. Albiero has played in 9 games for Blumenau, averaging 12 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists so far this season.
She's going to be missed this year.
Yes, she is.
She was a point guard for a long, long time. A couple of Cougars made some noise in the minors last night. Daniel Schneemann had 2 hits, scored 2 runs for the Akron Rubber Ducks.
You love that.
That's awesome, the Rubber Ducks. Jackson Clough had a hit for the Harrisburg Senators. The Senators versus the Rubber Ducks. Who would you want to play for? I think you'd want to play for the Rubber Ducks.
Well, look, Jeremy and I were having this conversation yesterday. The promotional nights, the giveaways have got to be pretty amazing at the Rubber Ducks.
That has to be.
Yeah. All rise and shout. It's time for What's Trending.
You're talking about it, and so are we. It's What's Trending on BYU Sports Nation.
All right, we touched on this just a second ago. BYU football has had quite the 2-year stretch in terms of victories. In 2020, the Cougars went 11-1. We all remember how close they were to going undefeated in that season. Just a remarkable year. And then last year, BYU was 10-3. So if we are in store for another 10-win season this year, well, actually, before we go any further, let's get to today's stat of the day. It'll help explain it.
It's the BYU Sports Nation Stat of the Day.
BYU has won 10-plus games 3 seasons in a row, 3 times in BYU history. So to finish the thought that I was just mentioning, if BYU were to reach 10 wins this year, Dave, it would be just the 4th time in BYU football history that the Cougars would have won 10 or more games in 3 straight years.
Pretty good.
The other stretches, these are the times where it's happened before. 79 through 81, 83 through 85, and then 06 through 09. So obviously that's a 4-year stretch. Dave, which 10-win season streak to you is most impressive?
Let's roll out the numbers, and because I think this is a great debate. Let's go to 1979 through 1981. 79 with Mark Wilson, they went 11-1, 13th in the AP poll. In 80 with Jim McMahon, they went 12-1, first 12-win season, finished number 12. That was the theme of that season, and beat SMU with the Hail Mary. 81, they went 11-2, finished number 13. So that's 34 wins, 4-1 against the P5s, and two of those 5 P5 games were in bowl games. So not much in the regular seasons, but those were great teams, and they won a lot of games. Go to 83 and 85. As Steve Young laments, they lost to Baylor to open up 83. Then they go 11-1, finish number 7. Win the national championship in 84, 13-0. They come back. Robbie wasn't healthy with his shoulder. They still won 11 games, finished number 16. So that's 35 wins, 7-3 against the P5s, with 3 of those games in bowl games. 2006 to 2009, shout out to David Nixon. Cougars won 4 years in a row, winning 10 or more, 11-2 in 06, then 11-2 in 7, 10-3 in 8, and then 11-2 in 09. So 43 wins, 8-4 against P5s, win over Oklahoma in there, and Oregon State they beat in the bowl game, but not a lot. A lot of games, not a lot of P5s. Now let's go to 2020, 2021, and project what's coming up this year. 11-1 in 20 during the COVID season, where you got to give that team more credit for going 11-1 just because of how they had to do it.
And playing a game 2 days before.
Getting tested all the time. Not knowing if you're going to have an opponent the day after. And then 10-3 last year, number 19 in the AP poll, but 6-1 against the P5s. So 21 wins, 6-1 against P5s. Arizona was the only one with a losing record. And then they've got Notre Dame, Baylor, Oregon, Arkansas, and Stanford on this year's schedule as far as P5s. So
where do you fall on this? Which stretch to you is most impressive?
Well, I think the national championship stretch stands alone. The earlier stretch with Wilson, McMahon, that's an incredible run. Nixon's group, 4 years in double figures. But I went to who'd they play? how many P5s? And that's why we listed the number of P5s. And I'm going to go, if BYU can go 3-2 against P5s this year, maybe even 4-1, depending on how Notre Dame and Arkansas go, I would say this stretch is of 20 with COVID, 21 and 22. You've got a national pandemic, and then you've got more P5s than any of the other teams played, even counting the 4 years of that run with Nixon's group. So I know what you're going to do, and I'm going to let you take the platform here, but I'm thinking where they are right now and where they can go this season, they have an opportunity to trump the other three.
See, I love topics like this because it's so subjective. It's based off of what you put the most importance on. Is it the teams that you faced? Yeah. Is it the level of opponent? Is it ultimately the number of wins that you had over the 3-game stretch? I'm going with what you said was certainly a 3-year stretch that stands alone, and that's the 83 through 85. In my mind, nothing can trump if during the 3-year stretch you win a national championship. If during that 3-year stretch the end goal is being the best team in college football, that's the 3-year stretch. And you mentioned the wins, 11-1, 13-0, obviously the championship year, and then 11-3. Then you have the quarterbacks that you had who just historically good with Steve Young in 83 and then Robbie Bosco and what he was able to do injured. Look, and the other part about it is we talk so much about 84, and I know that there's been a lot of people that said they think 83 was even the better team.
Yeah.
Look, and
79 might have been the best team ever.
So I can't go away from the 83 to 85 stretch because you get 35 wins. You win a national championship. At the end of the day, it's like a mic drop. You win the national championship. Done.
That's an awesome stretch. You can't argue with that stretch. I'm in the here and now, and the here and now is BYU's on the cusp of becoming a P5, joining the Big 12. They're playing. They're 21-4 over the last 25 games.
Blaine Fowler wants to know why you're discounting his time here.
I'll deal with Blaine later. But the quality of the opponent and the quality of the athlete.
Yeah.
I mean, BYU's a P5 school now, heading into the Big 12. They are the kind of team that BYU dreamed of playing against during all those runs. How can we get a P5? Well, we can get to this team. The Michigan game in the Holiday Bowl was awesome, but Michigan was 6-5 coming in. It wasn't Ohio State that BYU played in the Citrus Bowl and should have beaten. But I just love where they're at now and with the schedule, which they did not have back then. If McMahon and Young and Wilson and Bosco had this year's schedule, I would love to see how that would play out. And I would like our chances because I like BYU's chances with a healthy Jaron Hall. But those guys just didn't have that opportunity. They're playing in the WAC in the Mountain West, the dark ages of the mountain where most of BYU's games were hidden from the rest of the country. That was erased because all of BYU's games are on ESPN in Independence, or at least most of them. And so, great debate. I think they've got an opportunity to seize it this year with 5 more P5s coming.
Well, and I think the fact that the current stretch we're in, and again, we'll have to see how it plays out this upcoming season because if they don't get to 10 wins, then the 3-year stretch,
they got work to do.
They've got work to do. But for the sake of argument, let's say that they can do it. I think then the fact that we're talking about that type of stretch and comparing it to seasons like the other seasons we've talked about really puts it into perspective how high a level the football that we've seen played has been over the last couple of years. That this is, I don't want to say it's a renaissance because BYU has consistently been good and, winning 9 games. And certainly under Bronco, I mean, they were winning 8, 9 games just about every year. But I hope people realize what we're witnessing right now in terms of BYU football history, just how good the program is at this point. That we're comparing it to some of these other ones, I think speaks for itself.
And remember, the War Drums leading into last season this is the toughest schedule in BYU football history.
And you're losing the number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft.
Right. And then after last season ended, the Drums began, and it's like, well, now this is the toughest in school history. Those same arguments can't be made back in the day during those amazing runs by those other teams. So different place, different kind of athlete, different expectation. But a great debate because a lot of programs can't have that debate.
Yeah.
Which of the best of the four or this or the 130
We're talking about
games?
a lot of wins, and that's fun for BYU fans. Regardless of the generation that you've watched, you've had a stretch where you've saw BYU win a lot of football games, and that's what's fun about this program.
Yeah, I'm putting it on Puka and Jaron and Brooks and all those guys to make my case. When we have this conversation again in December, we'll go, yeah, this is it. Or now let's go back to the 83, 84, 85 awesome group.
All right, our question of the day, staying with this topic. Assuming BYU wins 10 games in 2022, which streak of 10-win seasons is the most impressive in BYU football history? Let's hear from you, BYU Sports Nation, here in Voice of the Nation.
This is the Voice of the Nation on BYU Sports Nation.
All right, before we get to some of the responses, we do have a poll up on Twitter and on Instagram. So we'll start with the results of the Twitter poll. Right now, 83 through 85 is leading pretty significantly. They have more than half of the vote at 52.4.
Hey, look, until the ballots come in from Florida.
All precincts are not yet in. 35% agree with you, Dave. It's 2021. Those are the two most popular answers.
609 is kind of getting dogged here.
Yeah.
You deserve better than that.
Yeah, 11.6.
Matter of fact, 79 and 81, you deserve better than that too.
Yeah, 1.2% on the Twitter poll. Now it's always interesting to me the differences between the Twitter and the Instagram poll.
A lot of smarter people are on Instagram.
Okay, Instagram poll, the 53%, so almost the exact same percentage that had 83 through 85 on the Twitter poll are going for 20 through 22.
I think the scheduling matters to them.
But again, it's 1-2 either way. 83 through 85 at 31%, 2006 through 2009 is at 12%, and then 3% for 79 through 81.
That's awesome.
Our first response on Twitter, let's see, says, any streak that includes a national championship has to be the most impressive. Maybe that could have been my tweet, too. Also on Twitter, Brandon Bourget, probably 83 through 85, as there's a natty in there, but 20 through 22 probably has the toughest opponents, to what you said, Dave. I'll change my answer to 2022 if BYU makes and wins a New Year's Six game this year.
Man.
Look, putting
all right,
restrictions
Brandon.
on it already.
Throwing it down.
So greedy. Chime in on our question of the day. You can also vote on the poll. Always use hashtag BYUSN on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Instagram folks are really pulling it through today. Coming up, what movie or TV show should BYU use for inspiration for future uniforms?
This is going to be fun. And
stranger things have happened.
And Atlanta Falcons beat writer Tori McElhaney joins us to talk about Tyler Allgeier and his fit with the Atlanta Falcons so far. This is BYU Sports Nation.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Delta Airlines. Keep climbing.
Trio Orem Senior Living believes in empowering seniors to live life to the fullest. We help eliminate stress out of daily life when you live at Trio. Less time focusing on housework means you can socialize at one of our many events, with safety in mind, of course. And did we mention our spacious apartments with modern amenities? Learn more about setting up a private tour at trioorem.com.
Introducing the truck for adventure. The all-new 2022 Nissan Frontier doesn't compromise on power or comfort. This midsize truck was redesigned to incorporate the latest technology and designs for safety, comfort, and convenience. Plus, with up to 6,700 pounds of towing capacity and best-in-class horsepower, it's rugged enough for adventure and still safe enough to transport all your favorite people. Where's your new Frontier? You'll find it at Tim Dowling Nissan Southtown and South Jordan.
This is your guys' song. You deserve...
Our goal, 50,000 books in the hands of children.
Okay, and I can help. and peace. Why do you do this? What do you get out of this?
It needs hope, and you need to show that little bit of love.
When you lay down your head. People come here one way, and they change while they're here. It was so great to be a part of it.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Check out Deep Blue Volume 3 featuring Alex Barcelo, Cody Feger, Gideon George, and others tomorrow at noon Eastern Time right here on BYU TV and on BYU Radio.
I saw Cody Feger yesterday as I picked up some lunch driving back to the building and saw Cody walking along the
Did
side of the
he
road.
wave to you?
I stopped. I slowed the car down. I said hello.
He's a very
Talked
friendly
for
guy.
a second. Check it out. Great Deep Blues. We are live in Studio B with your day-to-day BYU sports play-by-play. He's Dave McCann. My name is Jason Shepard, and we are so happy to be joined by Tori McElhaney. Tori covers the Atlanta Falcons for AtlantaFalcons.com. She joins us now on BYU Sports Nation. Tori, thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm good. How are y'all?
We are doing great, and I love the y'all. I am a sucker for a Southern accent. I could listen to it all day, so I appreciate you bringing it right out of the gate.
Oh, y'all is just in my everyday vernacular. It just is.
There is nothing
It just
wrong.
rolls off the tongue.
It certainly does. It certainly does. So obviously we want to talk a lot about Tyler Allgeier, and I guess you did a piece on him, which we'll certainly get into more as the interview goes along. But I'm curious, just your overall impressions of Tyler after talking to him and being around him for a little while.
Yeah, he is a very humble guy. For him to be such like a tough runner. I think it was one of my colleagues called him a bowling ball with spikes. And for him to be a bowling ball with spikes, like out on the football field, but just be like a good guy, humble guy off the field. He even paid a compliment to you guys yesterday and said that y'all would take good care of me coming on here. So honestly, it's been very, very interesting to get to know him. And I know the BYU Nation is very proud of Tyler Allgeier.
Well, BYU fans love Algiere, and they kind of grew the relationship because he was a linebacker and special teams, and then came into the running back spot due to some injuries, and then he just never left. But his toughness and his and you pointed it out too in your work, his ability to get stronger as the game goes on, and to wear teams down to where in the second half no one really wants to tackle him.
That was something that came up when I was talking to scouts and when I was talking to the position coaches. Just talking about, I think the direct quote was from Michael Petrie, who is the Falcons running backs coach. And he said, he was like, they really have to make a business decision. You talk about defenders tackling Tyler Allgeier. They have to make a business decision in the second half to be like, you know what, do I conserve energy or do I really go after these guys? And that's something that came up a couple of times in every interview that I did.
In your piece, and I thought it was very well done, there's a line in there that stood out to me when you wrote, he's a bowling ball that knows exactly where the pins are. Now, that's written by someone who's been in the bowling lanes before and knows exactly how that all works. But explain the metaphor back to Algiere and his skill set from what you've observed.
Yeah, so it all goes back, honestly, to his football IQ in that year of playing linebacker. That was something that the Falcons were very interested in. They very much value versatility in every aspect of the game. And so having a running back who has a year's worth of experience playing linebacker at this level it was something that was very intriguing for the Falcons, because they did feel like you saw how Tyler Allgeier took that year of playing linebacker and transformed it into the way that he attacks the run game and how he knows and understands fits and fronts and where blitz attacks are coming from and where to pick up guys. It was very, very interesting when you're talking to the Falcons in that they saw the value of that in his overall football IQ.
You know, Tori, this is not just an NFL thing. This is any sport. When you get to a situation where you're talking about guys getting drafted or bringing players into a situation, it's as much about how good they are. I mean, that's certainly, everybody's going to take a look at that. But it's as much about fit and opportunity as it is about what they actually bring to the field or the court. In terms of Tyler Allgeier, when he got drafted by the Falcons, I thought, man, this is a really, really good opportunity for him. What type of opportunity do you feel he has in Atlanta?
Yeah, I actually think he has a pretty good opportunity, especially when you're looking at that he's kind of getting in on the ground floor of this overall transition that's happening in Atlanta with Arthur Smith taking over play calling. And I do think that it's going to be really interesting to see, because I think right now when you look at the Atlanta Falcons backfield, it does look a little crowded. And I think you look at Cordarrelle Patterson as the guy who's going to be taking the brunt of the load. But when you look at someone like Cordarrelle Patterson, he's not your traditional running back. Tyler Allgeier kind of is. And so you want to be able to use Cordarrelle Patterson in a number of ways. And I think because of that, it opens the door for someone like Tyler to kind of get some good live reps in his very first year.
Visiting with Tori McElhaney at AtlantaFalcons.com. Now, BYU fans aren't gamblers for the most part, but we do play fantasy football. So where should Algiere be in our fantasy football drafts after what you've seen and what you just said?
I think it'll be, I feel like I'll be able to give you guys a better answer of that when we get to training camp. Right now in mini camp, it's really hard to see kind of what that rotation is really going to look like, especially with Cordarrelle Patterson not being out on the field. So, and they're not necessarily going full 100% at all. So have me back on in August, and I think I'll be able to give you a better answer then.
All right, we're booking that.
Well, I may follow up an unanswerable question with another unanswerable question for a lot of the reasons that you just mentioned, but can you see a scenario that at some point this year, Tyler Allgeier could be a starting running back for the Falcons? Is that too far-fetched to even think about?
Hey, now, before you answer, Tori, Steve Young told us that he believes by week 3.
Okay. I don't think that's too far-fetched to think that he couldn't go out and carry the brunt of the load. I think when it comes to Arthur Smith's overall scheme, I sometimes put less weight on who's the starting offense, because he does have so many packages that he uses, personnel packages and all of that kind of stuff. It wouldn't surprise me if, they run Tyler Allgeier out there on the very first play in week 4, but he's not necessarily your quote unquote starter, if that makes sense. I think when it comes to how Arthur Smith operates in this offense, it wouldn't surprise me how Tyler Allgeier's overall scope of where he's going and what he's doing in year 1 changes from week to week.
We got 2 big stories out of BYU at the NFL. Zach Wilson going to the lowly Jets and Algiere going to the lowly Falcons. We'll leave the Jets for Zach, and we'll talk to him about that. But what about the Falcons and this program that Algiere is now a part of? What trajectory are they on, and can they get good?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one a lot of Falcons fans ask on the daily. We really are in the very, very early stages of a transition for the Falcons. When Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith first got in here last year, they were kind of looking at a very uphill battle in terms of getting right by the salary cap. You're slowly starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel, and they will be able to have the opportunity in 2023 to really build kind of what they want to. They'll actually have the money to do that. So you are seeing the Falcons on it's not a super, super exciting trajectory in 2022, but I keep telling people, look at the bigger picture, how much money they're going to have towards the cap, how they're going to be able to utilize their first 2 draft classes, which does include Tyler, and how they develop these 2 classes into a team in 2024, 2025. So it's a long process. I think AJ Terrell said it best. He was like, I consider this a marathon, not a sprint for the organization. And I do think that's how I view it as well.
Look, every team's going to want to have a balance of run and pass. But with Matt Ryan no longer in Atlanta, now with the Colts, do you feel like there will be more reliance on the running game, or are the offensive coaches in Atlanta, are they confident enough, whether it's Mariota, whether it's the rookie Ritter, that they can continue the passing attack that they've had to where you don't necessarily feel you need to rely on the running game more? Does that make sense?
Yes, no, that makes total sense. I do think that the goal is all the time to be balanced offensively. And I think it goes to show how much weight they're still putting on the pass game, whether it is Mariota or whether it is Ritter, by going out and getting Drake London with the number 8 overall pick. And they got Kyle Pitts with the number 4 overall pick last year. The pass game is still very, very important to them in their entire operation. I just think now having a very mobile quarterback in a way that you didn't have that with Matt Ryan before with Marcus Mariota, potentially, I think that is where you add another layer. You have a quarterback that can take it out of the pocket, to be completely honest, and kind of pick up 4 yards if he needs to. So I do nothing against Matt Ryan, who we like to call Matty Wills, but I will say I do think Marcus Mariota is probably a little bit faster and a little bit more athletic in terms of that, in that terms. So overall, I think when you look at the balance of the offense, that's always what they're going to try and get.
Hey, Tori, speaking of fast, athletic quarterbacks, and the last question for you. How happy are the Falcons to see Taysom Hill moving from quarterback to tight end for the Saints?
I'm sure they're over the moon. It's funny because they are. He's been so interesting for the against the Falcons over the last couple of years because they've seen him in so many different roles, and it's almost like you never exactly know what he's going to provide the Falcons in a game. But it's funny too because I saw something the other day. The Falcons have Felipe Franks essentially converting to tight end right now, and someone said Taysom Hill walked so that Felipe Franks could fly, and I thought that was the funniest tweet of this offseason so far.
That is awesome. Great answer. Thank you.
Tori, great stuff. The piece was phenomenal. For those that haven't checked it out, go to AtlantaFalcons.com, and you can read Tori's piece on Tyler Allgeier. We appreciate you taking a few minutes today. Thank you for joining us. We will certainly have you on again.
Yeah, in August, right?
Yes, in August. I'll be able to talk all about depth chart then.
Very nice. Thank you, Tori. We appreciate it. Have a great day.
Y'all too.
There we go. Tori McElhaney covering the Falcons for AtlantaFalcons.com.
It's great. I feel bad for Jasen Ayu because somehow he's got to top that interview. And he's sitting right over here thinking about what he's going to say. So
that's right. He is coming up, right?
Bet.
What else is coming up?
BYU's best chance to win the Biletnikoff Award, currently on the roster, or did he already play for the Cougs?
Yeah, this is going to be fun. We'll talk about that coming up in The Whip. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Utah is a special place. Our communities, the people, the history. There is no place quite like Utah. At Siegfried and Jensen, we're honored to say that we are from Utah. We live here, work here, and when someone is injured, we're proud to say we've helped a neighbor when they've needed it most. We know Utah. At Siegfried and Jensen, we're here for you. Call us today.
I know what it's like to be overlooked, to be doubted, to fly under the radar. I only had one offer coming out of high school, but I was ready for every moment, every opportunity, and every shot that I got. Now I'm playing professional basketball, aiming to be one of the best shooters on the planet. And I'm just getting started. Be ready for your moment with Rapid Reboot, the future of rapid recovery.
Hey family, if you're looking for something new to watch, stop scrolling and start streaming. BYU TV has a ton of great options to binge together. From bold adventure to family drama and even a little fun, there's something for everyone. Binge entire series, experience all the feels, immerse in non-stop intrigue, and treat yourself to unexpected turns. Think you know BYU TV? We're just getting started.
BYU Sports Nation is brought to you by Maersk, enabling global trade for a growing world.
This is BYU Sports Nation. To interact with the show and get great content throughout the day, follow us on our social media platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok.
That's Brother McCann. I'm Brother Shepard. Let's whip it. Cougar Whip Around, presented by Maris, your integrated container logistics company enabling global trade for a growing world.
I saw Devo in concert in Vegas. So when they played Whip It, you know, it's like, these guys still got it.
My oldest son wears a Devo T-shirt, and I'm like, you know,
that's vintage.
Very retro.
That's old school.
Very retro.
24/7 Sports released a list of the top 10 biggest trap games in college football this season, and they include BYU and Notre Dame on that list as a trap for the Irish. So what's BYU's biggest trap game this season?
You know what? I was actually looking over the schedule and trying to come up with what I thought was the biggest trap game. And it's not like this team is somebody you would ever take lightly because it's an in-state team, but because it's the game before Notre Dame, I went Utah State. Because look, it's at home.
Right.
Obviously, we've had a lot of success over Utah State. This certainly
it's conference weekend.
Yeah, it certainly should be another victory for BYU. But I went Utah State because it's right before Notre Dame. That's where I landed.
I agree with you because it's also right before Arkansas. You got Notre Dame and then Arkansas back-to-back weeks, and you have Utah State on a Thursday night on ESPN. That's the one I'd circle as, hey, be ready for those guys.
All right, Fox Sports put out a graphic showing which teams have had a player win the Davey O'Brien Award, the Doak Walker Award, and the Biletnikoff Award. Only 3 teams have won all 3. BYU has won 2 of those. They're only missing the Biletnikoff Award. Is Puka BYU's best chance to win the Biletnikoff since Austin Collie, who we thought came the closest to it?
How about throw Heisman in there, too, and get BYU in another circle?
There we go.
Austin Collie was spectacular in 2008. He wasn't even named a finalist, which is a sham.
Crazy.
Over 1,500 yards, 15 touchdowns. Michael Crabtree won it from Texas Tech. He only had 4 more touchdowns than Collie, and Texas Tech was throwing it everywhere. Puka's got an opportunity, so does Gunner. They have an opportunity against a national schedule on national TV to make the kind of waves necessary to win these kind of awards.
I do not want to make sweeping, high expectation comments, but I think Puka Nacua has a chance to be one of the best, if not the best receiver to ever come through this program.
I agree.
I think he's that good, so I will not put it past him. I absolutely think that he is BYU's best chance to get that right now. There's no doubt in my mind.
Well said. As mentioned in the headlines, Clark Barrington was named a Phil Steele preseason first-team All-American. Where was Blake Freeland on this list?
Yeah, where was Blake Freeland? This is a guy that a lot of people think could be picked in the first 15 to 20 picks of the upcoming NFL draft.
Yeah. BYU's line is.
Look, and that's not taking away anything from Clark Barrington. Clark absolutely belongs on here. We were just surprised that there weren't multiple players. Certainly, Freeland being the other guy.
It's going to be fun to watch them run against South Florida.
Yeah. All right, this one's fun. By the way, are you a Stranger Things fan? Have you watched it? Do you even know what we're talking about?
I know what we're talking about, but that doesn't mean I watch.
Okay. Well, first of all, you need to watch it. It's really good.
All right.
The Indiana Fever of the WNBA have custom Stranger Things uniforms because Stranger Things is based out of the great state of Indiana, Hawkins, Indiana, which I believe is a made-up town. I don't believe it actually exists. So this got us thinking, what movie or TV show would you like to see BYU-themed uniforms?
I think it's a no-brainer. I'd like him to see After Further Review.
Oh, shameless.
A picture of Blaine on one side and a picture of Nixon on the other.
And where are you?
Smiling. I wouldn't be on the helmet.
You could be on the. Maybe you could do that's where we could bring the bib back, and you could be in the middle of the bib.
I could be the bib, or you could just say Tuesdays at 7 Eastern. By the way, July 26th. That's just around the corner. Less than 6 weeks away. We have a 1-hour special on Tyler Allgeier's run to history as our season premiere for After Further Review.
The guy loves to.
So anyway, that's what I'd do.
Okay.
What would you do?
Here's what my justification is, like, what's from a social media standpoint, what's garnered a lot of attention for BYU over the last couple of years? It's been dancing. Kalani on the sideline has been remarkable. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then Cosmo with the Cougarettes. That got obviously so much traction. So I'm going to say, how about So You Think You Can Dance themed uniforms for BYU? You see where I'm going with this?
I see the theme. I don't know how it translates to a jersey, but I love where you're going with it.
All right, what's coming up?
Results to our poll question of the day, which is a pretty good one.
Yeah, Wendy, clearly you're going to be favoring the Instagram versus the Twitter.
Yeah, a lot
because
of the
they
smart
agree with
people
you.
on Instagram.
Yeah, and BYU Assistant Athletic Director for Football Academics, Jasen is in the house. Speaking of dancing.
He's part of the thing. Wait, there he is.
There he is. There he is. He will join us coming up next. This is BYU Sports Nation.
Welcome to a partnership where customer experience comes first. It's our focus. It's your expectation. We provide support to those that go the extra mile for all of us. Supplying products, training, and service for generations. Learn more at bradyindustries.com.
Do you not know the groom's name?
I missed it on our first date, and it's way too late to ask.
Whenever you experience something funny, the first thing you want to do is like share it with your loved ones. Seeing that comedy like helped us through things, that we want to use that to help other people in a way.
We had one kid whose make-a-wish was to come to Studio C. It made me be like, these goofy sketches mean a lot to people.
BYU Sports Nation is presented by the BYU Store, official outfitter of BYU fans everywhere.
Join us next Wednesday for a 2-hour special of BYU Sports Nation as BYU Football Media Day. Interviews with head coach Kalani Sitake, quarterback Jaron Hall, athletic director Tom Homo. That's at noon Eastern time on BYU TV and BYU Radio. Following State of the Union, State of the Program, State of the Union, at 9 o'clock here local time. It's going to be a big day next Wednesday.
And I'm handling the web chats for 2.5 hours from noon to 2:30 on BYUtv.org.
That's tough work, too.
We got you covered. We got you covered all day long.
If you're into the Cougs, be into us on Wednesday.
Welcome back to BYU Sports Nation live from Studio B. He is Dave McCann. My name is Jason Shepard. And joining us now, happy to have BYU Assistant Athletic Director for Football Academics, Jasen joining us here in Studio B. Jace, I saw you at the Cubs football camp a couple of days ago. It's good to have you in studio.
I appreciate it. Thank you for getting me out of the heat. Camps was
it's hot out there.
Camps have been a little crazy. We had unbelievable turnout, and so
our beat writer from the Falcons was on earlier. Told us it was what 99%.
She said 99 degrees, and then with the humidity, it felt like it was like 104.
Yeah, so we got that going. We got a dry heat over here.
We got the dry heat over here.
Jason's happy because there's 2 Jasons on the show now.
It is. So I don't. Do you feel left out a little bit?
Well, I'm in the middle, so I don't feel left out per se. But I am interested in your opinion on our poll question. Mm-hmm. So you've got 3 groups of teams that have won 10 games or more for 3 straight seasons, and won 06 to 09, won 4. And BYU's on the cusp of that this year if they can get to 10 wins. So which is the most impressive of those 4?
Oh, this one right now.
Yeah,
this season right now. Yeah, but obviously I'm part of that team, so I'm going to say that, and with our staff. But I also like the strength of schedule. I think we've played a very competitive schedule the last few years, and so I'm definitely going with.
I think that's a great answer. What do you think, Shep?
Well, again, I went with when you win a national championship, it's sort of a mic drop. But Jason, we were made this point earlier. The fact that we can talk about multiple eras of BYU football, where it's this, that speaks to the health of the program overall.
Absolutely, that's incredible. That's an incredible accomplishment. And so, it's great because I was part of recruiting, and that's a big part of our tradition, and it's a real live tradition that's currently ongoing. So it's an awesome spokespiece to be able to share.
Well, and we'll get into some recruiting a little bit, because you mentioned obviously that was your position, but you have a new position now. We mentioned it, assistant AD for football academics. What's been the biggest change for you with the new role? Kind of explain what you're doing now.
Well, my first 4 years here at BYU, I was the academic liaison for football, and so I was very familiar with Trevor and all the people, the happenings over there. Kalani asked me to take over recruiting for a couple of years, which I did, and now I'm back into the academic side, which is awesome. It's a great step forward for the program with the Big 12 and expanding resources and allowing more full-time employees and more learning specialists, more mentors, and we have an incredible group up there. And I'm really excited to be able to be part of the ecosystem for the student-athlete and taking care of our guys and taking care of all the student-athletes here at BYU in particular.
It's interesting because the time period we seem to be in is the recruit comes to campus and wants to know what you can do for them with an NIL deal and guaranteed playing time, and if I don't like it, I just might leave. But your whole side is we want to get you educated and send you out with a degree as well. So you got to find a balance in this new kind of wave of thinking, don't you?
Yeah, our whole thing is very holistic. Our mindset is not on the money and the quick things right now, but we're trying to create better fathers, better men, better brothers, better husbands, and those things. And those things are all important to us. What they do on the field, what they do off the field, and their future is very important to the well-being of our student athletes, with the whole Built for Life and the things that we do, love and learn, our culture. And so it's much, much more than just an NIL deal, which I can get you right now. And if players are chasing that, maybe not a good fit for us here at BYU.
If that's just what they're chasing.
If that's just what they're chasing.
And what parents love to hear in that sit-down with Kalani is everything you're talking about. So
absolutely.
How can I make 100%. My son better?
Yeah.
As opposed to how can I pay him right now? You can actually get a little bit of everything now in college football, but your emphasis is we want him here for 4 years and we want him to leave with a degree.
Well, I am in a unique position where I have a son on the team. And so I'm looking at things from as a father perspective and what I would want for my son and the care and support that I would want him to have. And it's the long-term things. It's the careers after football. It's the spiritual support, the educational support, the athletic support, the medical support. All that plays into the role what I would want personally as a father.
Yeah, but I don't know if I'd want my dad having access to my GPA.
Oh yeah, yeah. Trust me, Jazz
I'm doing fine, Dad. Just take that. Take that.
Well, and look, like the big topic that everybody's excited about, and it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest thing to ever happen to BYU, is the invite to the Big 12. And you obviously, look, fans and us in the media, we can just enjoy the excitement of it. You guys have been behind the scenes since this happened, and there's so much work that has to go into getting not athletics ready for this. Give everybody an idea of what things have been like behind the scenes as you guys have really been working hard to get this athletic program ready to go in another season.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think it started with Tom and Liz and Brian and that whole senior leadership of preparing ourselves. And what does that look like? Going to even the academic side. Even from the medical training side, what does that look like in other places, and how can we be competitive? And now we have unbelievable resources. We have a huge football staff that I'm very blessed to be a part of, just for academics. That's never been done before. And just that alone is exciting to see the step forward, and being part of the Big 12 made that happen. And opened up resources that we've never been able to have before.
The last time I interviewed you, I was writing down quotes for a newspaper article about recruiting. And as you mentioned, you'd been spearheading recruiting for the last few seasons. So where were you? What were you doing when you got the call that BYU had been invited to the Big 12? Because you knew how big of a game changer that would be for recruiting moving forward. But do you remember where you were? And did Kalani call you, or how'd you find out?
I don't know exactly where I was, but we've been down this road before.
2015.
2015. Right? And so I was very reserved. Now I'm like, I lack faith. I need to see it.
Come on, Thomas.
I need to see it. We were so close before. But I just remember the excitement. And I felt we felt like we'd done something together collectively as a football program, as all the sports were unbelievable, winning championships and so forth, competing. And then, of course, with the direction of Tom Homo and President Vorking and President Worthen, it was just
So it wasn't a call, wasn't a text, wasn't a tweet. It was just, you just came to work.
It was bubble. I mean, we've been
today?
talking about it for a while as a staff and trying to keep the players down, you know. And like I said, we've been down this road before, and it was just kind of like.
You got the Utah game coming up. There's a lot of things to focus on.
Things are focused on. And if it happens, Klein did a really good job. Like, hey, there's a lot of things going on in media, a lot of assignment. Let's just focus on the task at hand, and whatever's supposed to happen will happen. That's where our mindset was.
Well, there's nobody more qualified to talk about the recruiting aspect of this whole thing than you, because that's what you've been doing. Mm-hmm. So give us the pre-Big 12 announcement versus the post-Big 12 announcement in terms of how recruiting has changed.
Oh, recruiting, winning obviously trumps a lot of things. And we've been winning the last couple of years very consistently. Now that you have the Big 12, being invited to the Power 5, it checked the last box that most recruits were looking at, even top LDS recruits were looking at for us. They don't play in the big dance, they don't play in the big conference, and now that box is checked, and we probably have more 4-star, 5-star, top 3-star kids ever coming to visit our campuses all through spring ball than we've ever had before. And so we're indoors now, probably solid. I think most top LDS recruits would bring us in, but didn't really sit us down and have a real seat at the table. We have seats at the table now.
Well, it took a sword away from your opponents, including one that's not very far from here. Mm-hmm. They can't say, well, they can't go to the biggest games.
They can't say they don't go to the biggest games, and they can't say we don't put people in the NFL. And we've done both of those things in the last couple of years, and we're going to continue to do so. And the program under Coach Sataki is we're trending so high right now. It's awesome.
Let's talk about Chaz, your son. Speaking of 4-stars, one of the biggest signings that had come to BYU out of Timpview High School, right? Mm-hmm. And injuries have been in his face for so much, but is it all behind him now? Is he ready to? He's going to hit camp on August 3rd. Full bore.
He'll be full bore, ready to go. He's had some injuries. He's bulked up. He's at 220 right now, just so he can play. You know, last year when Keenan got hurt, they moved Chaz down from safety to play more backer role in the box, and he was only 208. And so this year we're prepared either way to go up, play down, play in the box, play outside the box. And he's about 220 right now, feeling really, really good. So
what does that put him at? Does that put him at linebacker, or does it put him?
There's a hybrid.
Safety?
Yeah,
it's hybrid again, yeah.
Depending on the personnel. If it's a 4-3, he'll play the strong safety. He's a 3-4, he'll come down into the box.
So what is the expectations? Obviously, look, the expectations are always going to be high. What's the feeling in the program, in the locker room with these guys heading into this season, which obviously will be the last as an independent?
We feel super excited about the team, about the program, about the players that we have. We have a lot of veteran leadership that's played a lot of games together, and so as long as they stay healthy, we're ecstatic. I don't want to. I mean, I'm in academics now, so I can brag as much as I want and talk. But
you can say whatever you want.
I think we're going to win a lot of games, and we're going to surprise a lot of people. What we're doing, I think the success, 10 wins will not be a surprise to me.
Well, congrats with your new post.
Yeah, congratulations.
Sounds exciting. Parents everywhere of kids sending them to BYU are happy to hear that you've got that in place, and we're glad Chaz is doing well.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on the show.
There we go. Jasen, you appreciate you stopping by. Assistant Athletics Director for Football Academics. Appreciate him stopping by here today on Studio B.
Coming up, we'll get a poll update, I believe, and our elite voice of the day.
Yeah, and today's Rise and Shout-Outs go to 2 former Cougars. We'll explain. This is BYU Sports Nation.
They prefer to be bringing the heat, getting set for success, demonstrating their drive. But when their blood and sweat turns to tears or anything else, we lay the groundwork for BYU's athletes to hit the ground running again, and you as well. Intermountain Healthcare, official medical provider for BYU Athletics.
Hi, Spencer Linton here, letting you know when your company joins the BYU team as a corporate partner, your brand can be featured in sports programming on BYU TV and BYU Radio. In addition to all of the great games, you can be part of the BYU coaches shows, place your message in Countdown to Kickoff, basketball pre- and post-game shows, and each weekday on BYU Sports Nation. We invite your team to join ours and become a corporate sponsor of BYU Athletics. For details, email sponsorship@byu.edu today.
Summer is back, and that means BYU TV's Super Girls of Summer are too. And they're more super than ever. Brave, persistent, bold, and heroic. Be there for all the fun, the action, and the reactions.
Figured out how to make your world a better place.
I totally feel like Superwoman. Watch the Super Girls of Summer all season long on BYU TV or on the free app.
Follow the ups and downs of elite young gymnasts in an exclusive behind-the-scenes look as they twist, flip, and bounce their way to the podium. See the commitment, effort, and mindset it takes for these competitors to rule their sport on Gym Stars, on BYU TV, or on the free app.
This portion of BYU Sports Nation is presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics.
BYU Sports Nation is on demand. Download the BYU TV and BYU Radio apps today or download the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. Please subscribe, rate, and review the show.
He's Dave, I'm Jason, and our question of the day is this. Assuming BYU wins 10 games in 2022, which streak of 10-win seasons is the most impressive in BYU football history? And I'm happy to say that the Twitter folks still have it right, although the numbers are starting to even out a little bit more.
It is too close to call now.
So right now in the lead is still, according to the Twitter poll, is 83 through 85 with almost 46%. But the 20 through 21 and possibly 22 is gaining steam. It's at 40%. Then you have 2006 through 2009 at 12, and then 79 through 81 at just under 2%. The Instagram poll, though, Dave, is where you really like
52% for the current Cougars and their current strength of schedule. 37% back to the national championship run of 83-85.
Some of your responses on Twitter at BYU_GameDay says, I'm in the huge minority here based off of the poll, but I vote 79 through 81. Building that up for the first time ever is probably the most difficult. The 83 through 85 is the most memorable, but that was built because of 79 through 81.
79-81. They were awesome. They were awesome. 79 might be the best team ever, but 84 won the title.
All right, our elite voice of the day is presented by Sundance Mountain Resort. Comes from @CL_living. Says everyone that doesn't have a loss to Utah.
Okay, we had to look. The Cougars went 10-1 combined in those four groups against the Utes. The one was in 2008. The Utes went to the Sugar Bowl, I think, that year. So that one's on David Nixon.
You're going to pin that on Nix?
Everyone else was clean through there. Nixon, that one. And Brian Keel, that one's on you guys. And granted, Utah was really good that year. But everyone that doesn't have a loss to Utah. So
all right,
there you go.
Well, today's Rise and Shout presented by Mountain America, the official credit union of BYU Athletics. I'm going to give it to Jay Keeps. Congratulations on the new gig, personal quarterback coach for Russell Wilson with the Denver Broncos. Who are you going to go with today, Dave?
Michaela Clough, another outstanding former Cougar making noise.
Yes, absolutely.
Professional ranks.
She is phenomenal. Thanks to our guests today, Tori McElhaney from Falcons.com, as well as she was great, as well as Jason Ayu.
She'll be back with us in August.
She is. She promised.
We got to figure out if we have to draft Algiere in our fantasy draft.
That's true.
Conversation continues 24/7. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. #BYUSN.
For Dave, I'm Jason. Shout out to Matt Putnam. Go Cougs.